Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is my first video in English. My channel, as you know, is a political economy and philosophy channel. Therefore, we normally speak about very complicated stuff that is not understandable for everybody. However, today we're doing something that will be more applicable and applied to real life, which is climate change, as you saw in the title, and the relationship that there is between the subject of philosophy, political economy, and global warming, climate change, carbonization, and all the subjects that have been very popularized by the media in later years, especially in the last decade, above all. So one of the things that we are observing right now is that somehow the world seems to have put in place so that there is an international structure and there's coordination above all amongst the countries to have a common ground and have clear understanding. So there's communication and efficiency in what is done because it's a worldwide subject. And it needs to be addressed comprehensively. And so why do we want to address this from a political economy perspective? Because it's the economic model and the way we produce wealth that is getting exhaustive towards the resources that exist in our planet. And therefore, there is warming, there is a lot of extra carbon in the atmosphere, contributing to the warming and other problems derived from economic activity of humans. So it's deeply related. And where does political economy comes from? Also from economy, but also from politics, as the word says. So it's a very philosophical subject anyways. And how do we get there without doing structural changes to the way our systems are developed? And that's quite complicated to answer. I'm not giving an answer in this video. That's to start with. It's not our objective to say, oh, we have to do this to solve climate change. Everybody has an idea and theories of how to solve climate change. However, it is the work of science to decide. I actually wrote a paper about it, recently published. It's called Urbanization and GHG Emissions and its relationship with the food system, but that's too specific. I basically say that the way our living spaces organization will have also an impact that needs to be addressed in order to also collaborate with the other efforts that exist. So the city planning designers and the rural development designers need to work together so that there is also less carbonization from these mechanisms of, for instance, mixing agriculture with urban life and industry. Everybody's talking about decarbonization, about changing, especially first of all, the energy transition is what is on vogue right now. However, the war in Russia kind of stagnated all of that, because now Europe is lacking energy and China is back also on their use of carbon. A lot of mineral carbon is being used in China right now. So regardless, despite the growth of renewable energy, there is also going back to the old type of energy as well, because the economy is growing, the population is still growing, so it's quite complicated stuff. So the energy transition is still not developed, but it's going on and there's a lot of advance. And then the other subject is the transition of industry, right? How we're going to produce the same output, it's the same industrial output with less carbon emissions. So that requires a lot of changes in the productive structures. So you name it, whatever, manufacturing of cars, what's going to come out of there, especially construction, cement, concrete has huge emissions of greenhouse gases. So, how is this going to change? So they are talking and getting everything settled for that. That's good. So there's a theoretical framework. McKinsey says that we will need around $7 trillion per year globally to do this transition, both in energy and industry. So it's a lot of money. You multiply that by 30 years, which is the target year, 2050 or 60, it's a lot of money. It's huge amounts of money, but it has to be done. What is being said globally as well by the more liberal sides is that despite this amount of money that needs to be spent, companies will not have it as a burden. It will modernize them. It will make them better, more competitive, more up to date with the current state of things, and more market driven, etc. So there will be, after all, huge revenues from that as well. So it's not that the decarbonization budgets for huge companies is not a burden necessarily. It will be possibly for the smaller companies a problem in the third world, for instance, or in smaller nations. But those nations and those companies in those nations are not the biggest polluters anyways. So, you know what I mean? It's quite balanced. However, it is worrying at the same time what we're seeing, that already 5 years have been going through with deep talking about the energy transition, and just for a small war in Ukraine, this huge setback in the advancements toward the energy transition. So it's worrying that the industrial transition is not happening, and it's evident therefore that Asia will have a lot more easy because they're building the new world. They're the economies that are booming right now, and they're doing what the United States and Europe lived in the post-war years, but also before. So we're talking about 100 years difference. So because they're doing everything new, they will be the ones which will have to do the transition themselves as they grow. China is a bit delayed, but let's say India should have the growth of the future when it finally gets to grow as it's predicted. Because right now India is just starting to grow faster. So this is important to know that Asia is going to do it, let's say. But how is the West, with its all structures, its all industries and not huge steep growth rates as it happened in 50, 100 years ago? How are they going to do it? For me, I would say radical changes need to be done on the way our societies are organized. For instance, and that's the core subject in other videos of mine in Spanish, if you're not smarter than others, they will outsmart you back. So this kind of rhetoric is delicate, and we're going towards that political scenario, right? The smarter wins. You have to always be faster and more aggressive than the other people all the time. So we're not going to go anywhere regarding climate change with that attitude. That's a big problem. So what happened for me is that in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, there was a lot of confusion with science and religion, right? In the West had it hard separating science from religion, and it helped a lot because when that happened, scientists started to develop a lot of progress, and there was a kind of modernization in all aspects of life. But we don't need that in these years. We need not to worry about science because it's already organized. There's amazing things happening in science everywhere, both in Europe and the United States, and even in Latin America, in all continents. So it's more about philosophy and how we get to produce knowledge and in which conditions, because the organization of society is really collapsing, and everybody's talking about it, especially about the pandemic. So there needs to be a union now. I'm not saying we have to go back to radical Catholicism, but we need to create a new philosophy and a new theology that entails science and all the theories that have been produced, because God was amazing in developing and getting us where we are. What they did in the 18th and 19th century, so that we could liberate all the forces that we have now, the economic, the productive forces that exist today, it's impressive. But the way it was done, that needs to be reanalyzed, so that something better comes. Because the climate crisis is there, there could be a catastrophe, and we don't know how soon it's going to be. It looks sooner than we thought. Because 2023 has been the hottest year, to more than expected warming levels. So yeah, it's a delicate situation. So I leave it there. I'm just saying the core of Western philosophy needs to change so that climate change can be addressed for real. Let's give it a try. I'm just going to leave it here, but let's wait for 5 years and see what happens, and then we're coming back to this video and see if it didn't happen or not, and even 10 years. There's no rush, but things have to be done. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.